You can change the time by writing the time on white duct tape. Thanks, Rilla. I love it. Okay, other questions you all have? Okay, bye. Yes, Mary Pale. I can talk about finances if you would like. We completed the first quarter, so the finance team has shifted a little bit of how they are evaluating the finances of the church. It used to be done on a monthly basis. With the start of the preschool and the learning challenge of how long it takes the federal government or the state government to get money back to us, we needed to reevaluate how we were doing that. So we monitored the church on a monthly basis, and we monitored the whole thing on a quarterly basis. At the end of the first quarter, the church was ahead by $11,000, which is fantastic. The church is looking really good. We're very strong. We also, though, are holding a lot back. So I'm not letting us spend a lot of money right now on things outside of the building. We're not expanding a lot of things. We're just trying to keep it pretty thin right now, and that's working. The preschool was behind about $35,000. That does not account for money that we are still owed. We got money 2 weeks ago from October of last year. So I don't know what the answer is for some of this. So we recognize there's a lot of money that we float up front for federal programs, early Head Start. We have kids, we have 3 kids in our facility right now who are not in their homes. They've been removed from their homes, and the state is paying for it. We have yet to see a check for any of them. Even though I have a signed agreement, the state's going to pay it. So it's a matter of time. So we're not so worried about it. We manage it as well as we can. We have enough cash flow to float it, so we're not concerned about that. That's not a problem. What we find is it gets caught up and it writes itself, but this is kind of how the process goes. So, enrollment. Dick has asked how enrollment is. Is anybody noticed? Do anybody drive around town and notice help wanted signs anywhere? Yeah. Hiring is a significant challenge in our city today. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's justice reasons for that. There's issues related to what we can pay. We here strive to get our people to $15 an hour in the child care, and that is the Bozeman minimum wage. It's based on if you have education, you start there. If you don't, we pay for people's education. So I want everyone to hear we invest in our staff and our employees to get them the education they need, and once they do that, they get to 15. And then we do, certainly we have yearly increases. Our enrollment is not, I say that to say enrollment is not where we want it to be. We can have 64 and we're at 40 right now. And the reason is we've actually closed 2 classrooms because I don't have teachers. We do not have enough staff. We will lose 3 of our best staff this summer. They are all leaving because in part of the political nature of our state. We have one person who is queer, one person who's a person of color, and they just don't feel safe here anymore, and they're leaving. And they are 3 of our best workers, and that's sad to me. There's nothing, and it's not us, it's not here, it's here. And so, we have work to do. That's a hard place to be for our folks. That said, we're doing a different model this summer. We hope to be at 60. We're enrolling for the fall and hiring for the fall. So we have a different plan and a different strategy. And what essentially happens with the preschool is I would say every 6 months we pivot our strategy. We do something for a while and then we pivot and we do something different and that works and then it doesn't. Enrollment right now is such a changing, shifting place. I don't know what it looks like. But we can get 60 with our current staffing makeup. And so I think we will be good. We've pulled it back this summer to help get some processes down. One of the things I would say, and Amy and I have talked about this a lot, I've been in ministry 18 years. I've been around a ton of preschools and a ton of child care centers, and I've never seen issues like this in my life. These are issues of poverty that I was not prepared for. There's issues. I mean, we are first name basis with the police and social workers and CPS and Family Promise and folks. The things we deal with here are immense, but they matter. They matter more than any preschool I have ever been a part of, because it's not the privileged who are reminded they are loved. It is those children who are told they are not loved at home, and they are here every single day told they are loved. From the words down, all the preschool welcome home, just FYI. That's our kids over there. So, but yeah, the issues, if you want to hear more, I'm happy to talk about it more, but the issues are great. So, but that's the good work we need to do. So right now, the preschool is about 2,000 to 3,000 behind a month, and we know that, and we plan for that, and we know that there will be some loans, forgiveness loans that we will be accessing in the future from the state. This is money that's been earmarked for child care centers, and so we're just waiting for the state government to figure out how to disperse that. So we anticipate the preschool will end the year even. That's our goal, and we know what it's going to take to get that done. We're just kind of waiting. So great question, Dick. Thank you. Yes, Don. Yeah. So, I would say we average pre-COVID 250 would have been our Sunday average. And 2 weeks ago, we hit 250 between the two, between online and here. And then Memorial Day hit. And it's summer in Bozeman, so here we go. It's the roller coaster. So this is one of the things that Amy and I wanted to talk about is, we went through the chimes, mailing the chimes, and Amy was writing out all these notes to people, and we were going, where are you? Why aren't you here? And where is everybody is a really good question, and the answer to that is exceptionally complicated. Some people are choosing not to come because they don't feel safe. Some people are choosing not to come because it's summer. I was talking with Brian Crumrine this morning, who said he's having I need to travel. I just need to go and be places. We're all feeling that, and some people are using their resources to actually do that in great fashion, and they're gone on Sunday morning. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to find the summer is going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be highs and lows. There's going to be people here and not here. I think you'll find about another 25 to 30% of our community will step back in September, as they normally do. That's kind of a pattern that happens here. But we won't find a stronger rhythm until Advent. Advent 2021 will be exceptionally critical for the community. So,
I think another thing that I would say about that is that it's really easy for us to gauge this room at 9:30 on a Sunday as the thing that makes us feel like we are who we are, and it does feel good to look out and see a lot of people in the pews, so to speak. And so I think it actually happened to me, and I shared it one Sunday. I was looking at the prayer concerns that were coming up on the Facebook feed, and I looked at the number of people that were watching, and I knew what we had been at. And, we were usually around like 80 views or something like that, which I think they say that you times that by the fact that that's not just one person at each computer, and et cetera, et cetera. And it was only like 40. And I was like, wait a minute, why are there so many fewer people? And I was like, oh, because there's people here. And so that's just an anecdote to remind ourselves that what we're used to using as a way of our identity is going to continue to look different. And I've said this before, but it's even more important now that it's really about engagement and the people that were in their lives than it is people that are actually sitting here in a pew. And it's, Eric is far more numbers oriented, but I definitely see the value in looking at all of those different pots. Like we have, in-person worship, online worship, people that listen to the YouTube later, people that listen to just the audio in their car, people that their family comes to youth group, but they've never come to a worship service. This baptism family, some of those folks today had never been here before, and we connected with that family. And there's just so many different ways that we are in relationship with each other, and it's important.
I would say one of the other shifts we see in the world today is not just that we offer multiple opportunities to engage, but I would say it's also the concept, Amy and I have been talking about this a lot, the concept that people don't think they need God. We live in an unchurched world. The number of people who were at the baptism today who'd never experienced a worship service and had no idea what we were doing was fairly high, even though they were all baptized and grew up in church. They don't know church anymore. So I think one of the lenses we have to change is our responsibility is to look at unchurched people. Now, we have a unique vantage point to do that here at BUMC, and that is through a lens of inclusion, to connect with people that normal churches aren't going to connect with. Churches that aren't going to be inclusive and proudly inclusive. There's a whole segment of the population that goes, yeah, I don't want anything to do with your God. Your God doesn't love me. Why would I want that? So, this is one of those areas that we find. There's going to come an announcement in a couple of weeks, but we have begun a partnership with a new group here in Bozeman called Pride House. It's a group of LGBTQ teens at Bozeman High School what's the other high school's name? Gallatin High School, and at Three Forks High School. And it is a safe place that will be in our building, open to them after school, starting 3 days a week in the fall. Yeah, it's amazing. They reached out, and they reached out to churches. Fascinating. Not where I would have started, but that's where they did. And they visited a bunch of churches, and they loved visiting with Pastor Amy one night, touring our space and what we would offer, and they said nobody else was as upfront as you were. So, and the art, color. So, it was good. It was good. But that's one of the things of unchurched. How do we connect with people who are not churched, and introduce them to how we understand a relationship with God and one another? Yeah, Don. Yeah, so the question was, have we as the church been impacted by any of the decisions in the recent legislation? The biggest one that impacts us, I guess I would talk about that a couple ways. The state attorney general's decision to issue an opinion, not a ruling, but he issued an opinion, that critical race theory, which is a legal definition, I want to remind you, a legal definition that white people privilege from our criminal justice system, that's what critical race theory is, ruled that schools should not teach it, which would mean that schools should not talk about white privilege or white supremacy or issues of race in our country. So that's an opinion, and it carries no weight. So that's what I would say to that, first and foremost. Two, it's a decision based on the public education system, and we're religious, and we can kind of do whatever we want. So that's the second thing I would say. The biggest one that's impacted us, though, is the anti-discrimination against those who choose not to be vaccinated for COVID. So I cannot fire someone. I cannot not hire someone who hasn't been vaccinated. I cannot ask for vaccination status. I can not do any of those things without repercussions. And we've actually worked with the chancellor of the annual conference to figure out lens there. The personnel team's done a great job to say this is what we can do, and we've done the best we can. That was the one that I think impacted us the most. Because we do have folks who refuse to get vaccinated, and that certainly is their right. But it's a bit of a different challenge for us as a employer. I don't have certain privileges or certain powers now that I have versus, differently as a public building space. So, yeah, that was the only two that I would say. Otherwise, no. Yeah. Is it true I cannot require masks? No, that's not true. No shirt, no shoes, no service, no mask. Same thing. Do we choose to? No. I choose not to have the fight. It's an invitation. If you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. If you're vaccinated, we invite you. You're welcome to take it off. If you're not vaccinated, we strongly encourage you to keep it on. We're working on the honor system here for people. Yep. Other questions? I don't want to lose anybody online. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Yes, Patricia. Yeah, that's a fair thing. Employees, the comment was how we are impacted by recent legislation is employees who are choosing to leave. Yeah, they don't feel safe. The Southern Poverty Law Center issued a statement this week. I don't know if anybody saw it. The state with the most hate groups in the entire country is Montana. So an awareness of where we live and the work we have to do. And we're called to do this work, I believe. I don't know about you all, but I think God has empowered us to be a different voice in our community. So. Other questions, comments? So the question is, do I see a lot of those groups in Bozeman? I think the answer to that is, when I do a fair bit of traveling around this state. I'm up in the Flathead area an awful lot, the Great Falls area, the Missoula area. Driving from here to Missoula, I don't see anything. Driving from Missoula up the highway to the Flathead Lake, I don't see anything until I get outside of Kalispell. Well, I mean, I see stuff, but I don't see signs. I don't see hate group signs until I get north of Kalispell, and then it's literally every mile. If you drove from Kalispell to Columbia Falls to Whitefish, if you drove from Columbia Falls to Big Fork, the signs are out of control. They're ideological, but they're Ten Commandment signs, they're white supremacist signs, they're white power signs, pretty blatant. I mean, people have been emboldened to act in a certain way. So do I see it as visibly there as I see it here? No. Should we assume that means it's not here? I mean, right? It's very underground in Bozeman and Missoula, but it still certainly is here. Yeah. Gloria. Yep, just a hard, difficult time for us to figure out how to be connected together. How do we have conversation amongst our differences? Where's the decency for being in relationship with one another? We all have a part to play in that. Every one of us. Other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Yes, Reed.
Your statement that you thought that God was leading us in the direction of inclusiveness. And I'm really open to the fact that all of us are open to hearing God's messages.
Thanks, Reed.
I'm worried about this gathering
So what Reed has asked, I'm not sure the specific Catholic situation you're referring to, Reed, but I would invite us to let. Okay, well, we'll let the Catholics deal with their own problems. How about that? We'll focus on ours. I think the challenge of when we turn to either ideological perspective and claim that it is God's, we must recognize the fallacy of that. God is bigger than a party. God is bigger than an ideology. God does not pick sides. If we look in Scripture, we see, example after example of nationalism and God and how that tends to end poorly. And so I think we have to just recognize that aspect of faith. I don't have the easy answers. I think there's two things I think about when I think of how we have dialogue. And it's the perspective of, I think about my father and I do not agree ideologically about what we believe. We joke that we canceled each other's votes out in the election, right? And yet, we still are able to have conversation. We still are able to dialogue, or we were, until things shifted. And then suddenly, someone wasn't able to dialogue about that. So I think we have to learn, how are we open to a different perspective? How do we listen to one another? How do we see the holiness of someone? How do I turn to someone who I vehemently disagree with and think is absolutely off their rocker to think what they think and still go, you are a child of God, worthy of grace, unconditionally loved, and welcomed in community. That's not easy, Reed. That's the hard stuff of faith today. Anybody feel, you guys are considerably older than I am. Does this feel familiar to anybody? Anybody? Is this time? Yeah, I've started to hear this from baby boomers who started to say, gosh, this feels like we've been here before. Did we make it through that? Yeah. How did we make it through that? We persevered. We persevered. We marched. Thank you for that. We marched. But you know what you did before we marched? Every single time in the 1960s? We prayed. Every single time. We did have heroes and sheroes, absolutely, but we prayed. The community got together, prayed together, worshiped together, went and marched, came back, bounded their wounds, and prayed together again. So I invite us in the midst of this time not to lose sight of prayer. Not that we're going to change anybody else's minds, as Abe Lincoln said today. It is much more about softening our own hearts and being open to loving someone. And keep marching. There you go, Gloria. Other questions, comments? Amy, do you want to talk about discipleship real quickly? Well, it's 11:17. That's a great time to eat breakfast. It's been one of those days.
It had been in the microwave since like 8. Oh, hi, Mickey. Yeah, please. Thank you, Mickey. Did you guys hear that okay? Yeah.